What's going on, Soul Tribe? And welcome to Alchemist Astrology. Justin here, and bring another little nugget add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mercury in Cancer in the third house. And this is a pretty neat one, I think, for Mercury to be in. Now, when you talk about that elusive Mercury, we're already doing one of the things that Mercury signifies. Communication is a big one for Mercury, but it deals closely with the idea of the intellect, of reasoning, of forethought. Mercury's how we just understand things and how we convey the thoughts that we receive. And Mercury is such a multifaceted planet, and especially in terms, I think this will be something really important to kind of talk about in this placement too. But Mercury can signify in terms of like occupations, from bodyguards to sculptors to musicians to accountants to actors to, I mean, you name it. It's just a matter of the skill, the things that you find yourself interested in, that you're wanting to learn. There's a sense of discovery, a youthfulness with Mercury. So, yeah, there's going to be some couple of things that Mercury signifies amongst like 100 other things. Now, when you talk about Cancer, Cancer is ruled by the good old moon, and they are the cardinal water sign, and it's one of the nocturnal signs, so it's more receptive in nature. And when you think about Cancer being ruled by the moon, how that idea of fluctuation, especially with the moon being so closely tied into the body, there's a sensitivity in Cancer. Not just that it's an emotional sign, which yeah, but it's one that is it's sensitive to the feelings of others. It's a very intuitive sign when we think about Cancer. Cancer, with that being ruled by the moon, guess where it gets that nurturing quality, in that ability to take care of others, to know, just again, it's just intuitively what one may need, just to have that right remedy, that right thing, to just know the right thing to say. That can be a really great power for Cancer, and to be able to regulate oneself within the emotions that are happening within themselves and with those that are happening around them as well, with being one of the water signs, and saying the really kind of the source of emotions, being the cardinal water sign. That being able to feel out a room with Cancer. So that's another thing to kind of pay attention to with there. Then we get into the third house. This is one of the Caden houses, and this was known in Hellenistic astrology as the house of the goddess. And some of the themes that this house deals with are going to be with like siblings. This can deal with your relatives. It can get into friendship. It can deal with like friends. It can get into like your neighbors, or your neighborhood. This can get into it's one of the travel houses. I've been, just as a little side note, I just put the third and like the ninth house as more travel houses, but I came across a source within Vedic Balance where he refers to the third house as travel abroad, whereas conversely the ninth house would be benefits from foreigners. So I think that's an interesting thing that I've personally seen that's been coming up with third house placements. But again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, travel abroad, or just travel in general. If you own like a vehicle or anything along those lines, like how you commute, things along those lines. Communication is another thing that comes in there. Education, if I didn't mention that, with the third house as well. Those are going to be some of the main themes that are going to deal with the third house. So when you're working with this placement, a few things to consider. One, you would have a Taurus rising by whole sign, and you're going to want to look to the moon, because the moon is going to import the themes of this house to wherever it happens to be. And then Mercury is going to be responsible for your second house, which deals with like your personal finances and possessions. You can get into this idea of like giving and receiving associations. Another thing that comes up with the third house, or excuse me, with the second house. And then Mercury also is going to import the themes of the fifth house, the house of good fortune. Love that. And that deals with topics of like of children, pregnancy, sexuality, creativity is a thing that falls in there. Association, friendship, and what else am I getting? Oh, there's another really good one I like with the third house, again from the same source, that talks about the completion of some good deeds or benefaction. So that idea of, again, that giving and receiving that comes in there. So some things that I would talk about with this placement, just kind of right off the bat, having that relationship, whether it be with having that keeping that relationship with siblings, with families, with friends, with neighbors, having that sense of community, I think would be a really strong thing for this placement to have, especially Mercury being that communication space and how we were talking about that giving and receiving. You have those if when you have those people that you're whatever skill, whatever you bring to the table, you just have that much more to have, when there's when where there's that sense of family in that sense. And of course, we're going to have to pay attention to what aspects are happening with Mercury, what's happening with the moon. That could signify if there's any sort of like troubles that may have happened if there's any sort of shakiness there, whether it be with friends, family, siblings, things along those, neighbors, and any sort of like hard aspects that may be happening from like Mars or from Saturn, depending on if you have a day versus a night chart. But another thing with this placement that I would talk about is thinking about how I said how Mercury can be very just kind of, as far as like skills, is a very multitudinous sort of placement, or when we talk about the planet. So with that fifth house dealing with your creativity, and that third house kind of dealing with education, thinking about, I mean, one, this would be a great placement for like a teacher, especially I think with like early educations, considering that fifth house is coming in there with the children. But just thinking about things that you're passionate about, whether it's music, whatever skills that you happen to have, and you're getting a professional to help to shape that and mold that, and then you in turn may become a teacher. Maybe happen to be teaching abroad, while we're talking about the third house representing kind of travel, or maybe happen to travel for your work. That could be something that could potentially come up there. Maybe it could be something with like a nurse. I could see that coming up. There's something with like communication. Maybe you do some like journaling, or something with maybe like different news outlets or things like that, like a news anchor or something, or yeah, journalist. I could see this maybe be doing something with, maybe you happen to do something with your siblings, or maybe they happen to be in some sort of like education field, or maybe they happen to do a lot of travel and things. And again, it's not just the stuff that I think people can bring in with that fifth house, but again, the associations, those sort of like networking things for whatever you might need. Maybe it's maybe someone happen to go on a trip, and someone who's got a place somewhere in Romania, and you've been wanting to go there, and you never know. You never know. Or maybe happen to even do something where there was maybe working with. Oh, I'm just thinking about maybe doing some like jobs, maybe for like an uncle or like an aunt, something where maybe you receive some kind of like money on the side. That could be something maybe that could I could see show up with this placement. I think what else could come through there. This could be one where I think it would be a very really kind of great for like creative writing. I think would be another really good things for that. Maybe even like maybe spoken word, maybe some kind of poetry. Definitely music. I think this would be a great place for like singing. I think could be a really kind of nice thing, because Cancer, I find like the water, like all the water signs. There's a strong creativity with the water signs, and I think that this could be a really good one for exploring that avenue, even if it's not as a profession. Just doing those things as a hobby, having something along those lines. The third house could deal with like rents and revenue, so that might be something where maybe have to do something with like housing, possibly, where you're like maybe kind of renting out things, or maybe you happen to maybe have a family member who happens to rent out something for maybe you and your kids, possibly, or maybe there's some sort of connection that can maybe come through there. And again, like I really think that idea of keeping those connections, because you could have people who, I'm thinking, for example, I got some friends who are very handy. So when it comes to like, hey, can you either come help me with this, or maybe can you give me some advice to kind of walk through these certain things? I'm trying to build this, I'm trying to do that, or point me to the right sources. That could be another thing that kind of comes up there. But those would be some base things that I would just kind of explore with someone with that happens to have this placement. You definitely need the whole chart to get a better idea of how these things may be showing up for you. But if you have this placement or know someone who's working with this placement, down in the comment section, let me know how this is shown up for you. And if that's something that you want to explore further, kind of navigating this placement in your chart, maybe happen to have Mercury retrograde, whatever that happens to look like, down in the description box, there is a link to book a consultation with me. So definitely check that out. And if you have any questions about the services that I provide, my email's down there as well. So feel free to look into that. And then if you want to support the work that I'm doing further, I have a link also down there for my Patreon, which has 2 tiers. For my Lucky Day podcast, that's for tier 1, and it's just it's a monthly show that talks about the most auspicious days for each month for whatever endeavor that you're wanting to initiate. And then the second one will include that plus a personalized monthly transit report from me. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely check that out. There are a couple links for some playlists for the Lunar Shenanigans and the Celestial News Monthly that I do here on YouTube regularly. And then if there are any placements that I haven't gone over yet, I have them all in playlist on my channel. If there's one that you see that's not on there, leave a comment and that'll be the next video that I will try to have out there. So that's all available for you. But looking forward to talking with you and seeing how these placements show up for you. And until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one later.